Good day and welcome to SCO BRICS Insight, where we talk about what's really going on in the world of the BRICS. Now today I want to talk about the relationship between two BRICS members, which are Brazil and China. Now most people are not aware that Brazil is one of the largest recipients of Chinese investment, plus it's a founding and active member of the BRICS along with China, and the relationship between Beijing and Brasilia appears on the surface to be relatively stable. But our appearance is deceptive. I mean, the Brazilian President Lula said at a gathering of Brazilian industrialists a few years ago, he said, "We have the illusion that China is occupying Africa, that China is now trying to occupy Latin America." Now, is this really an occupation of Brazil? Is China really dominating Brazil as reported by the Diplomat magazine? Well, the political circle of Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva is known to have many individuals who feel that way. If they're not biased against China, at least they're very wary of it. And within the opposition, particularly the following of the former President Jair Bolsonaro, who's been referred to as the Brazilian Trump, it seems that there are even more opponents of the rapprochement with China within the BRICS. Now, a section of Brazilian business community, which has support in government bodies, including the regional ones, has a very ambiguous attitude towards the Chinese investment within the country. I mean, this peculiar anti-Chinese lobby is aimed at receiving investments, including for the development of their own businesses, but not allowing China to have the opportunity to use the country's enormous resources without full control. Furthermore, there's a view that China's economic influence should not be allowed to dictate domestic political processes or foreign policy decisions. I mean, it's also necessary to take into account that the US President, newly elected, Donald Trump, has clearly stated his intention to return the US to a dominant position within the region, part of the Monroe Doctrine, I suppose. Now, this will involve reducing China's influence in Latin America as much as possible, and the most significant platform there is undoubtedly Brazil. Whoever wins in Brazil will own South America. However, it appears that neither the US nor China fully understands that Brazil aspires to be more prominent in its global role and strategically navigating the complex diplomatic dynamics with China, which also has its own interest at stake. I mean, will the left-wing Brazilian Lula decide to engage in overt confrontation with Trump in the context of geopolitical shifts? How will Brazil's complex relationship with China, which has become a bit tense, unfold? I mean, will Brazil, leveraging the capabilities of the world's leading players, achieve the status of a superpower as its analysts and politicians aspire to? Now, in 2026, Brazil will hold new presidential elections. The current president, Lula da Silva himself, expresses uncertainty about his participation in the 2026 presidential elections due to the surgery he recently underwent. In October 2022, Lula won the presidential elections, but only by a small margin, beating the previous incumbent head of state, the US-orientated Jair Bolsonaro. Now, Bolsonaro has been removed from the presidential race next time by a court decision, but you've got to emphasise that he and his supporters also believe that Brazil should be a global player on the big stage. Now, before I continue, I'd like to make an appeal. If you like and enjoy my videos, you can help me fund the channel and my website, SCOBRICSinsight.com, to further develop it. You can do this by making a small donation, which you can do by clicking on the thanks button at the bottom of the video screen. Everybody who donates does get a personal thank you from me, and I'm thanking you all now just for watching. Do keep the comments coming and do like and share. And these claims of the positions of the different political forces in Brazil are actually similar. As Brazilian sociologist Pavel Grass asserts, Brazil is just beginning to regain its rightful status as a superpower in South America, and its friends and neighbours should get used to Brazil's greater hegemony in the region. I mean, Brazil is a country that's just beginning to wake up from a long political and military hibernation. Now, during the period of corporate raids back in Russia, there was a popular joke. The big bad wolf meets Little Red Riding Hood in the forest and asks, "What would you like, my dear, a hostile takeover or a gentle merger?" Now, it seems unclear which of these is actually more likely to be dangerous for Brazil's economic independence. Is it Trump's forceful pressure on the Chinese soft takeover of the strategically important facilities through investment? Or while Trump has threatened Brazil with tariffs and other measures? China's been systematically investing in the key sectors of the Brazilian economy for years, and these include logistics, manufacturing, oil production, and the hydropower sector, which is particularly significantly important to the country. Now, it's noteworthy on the topic of hydropower generation was a central component of the previous president, Dilma Rousseff's presidential campaign. Now, bear in mind, she's currently the head of the BRICS Bank. And China is the global leader in installed hydroelectric capacity with more than 350 gigawatts. And it's noteworthy that the top 10 countries in terms of hydroelectric power production include both Brazil and China, and they are in first and second places. China is also working to master the process of generating hydroelectric power in Brazil. In fact, it's pretty much taken control of this sphere. This initiative is driven by the strategic utilisation of the generated electricity, which is instrumental in the transition away from the production of environmentally harmful biodiesel and biofertiliser factories. It's important to acknowledge that the process of generating hydroelectric power inherently poses some environmental challenges, primarily through the restriction of water flow in the rivers, and that leads to an escalation of the toxicity of fresh water. Consequently, its detrimental impacts on the aquatic ecosystems. Well, I'll believe that if I see it. While hydroelectric power plants have been identified in Brazil as beneficial, there's a negative environmental impact, including the death of the flora and fauna and an increased risk of flooding in areas adjacent to the dams, plus the degradation of the ecosystem and deforestation. Environmentalists in Brazil are expressing concern, and the dam victims movement has gained momentum in the country. However, given the substantial financial gains from the hydropower development in Brazil, their concerns are not actually being taken that seriously. This is further evidenced by the establishment of an alliance for the innovation and exchange of experience in the electric power industry in 2024 by the State Grid Corporation of China in collaboration with the major Brazilian energy companies and research institutes. Now, in addition to developing electricity generation, China is also investing in the acquisition of large power plants to go along with them. 5 years ago, China constructed an advanced power line in the South American country, which is the first of its kind in Brazil. Now, it spans 2,500 kilometres, and this ultra-high voltage direct current power line facilitates the efficient transmission of clean energy to the load centres in the cities. Presently, China is constructing a second such line with the aim of modernising the hydroelectric power plants and developing solar and wind energy in the country. Additionally, plans are underway to establish a network of charging stations for these renewable energy sources, as well as being able to power the various cities. Now, several of Brazil's major hydroelectric power plants are currently owned by Chinese enterprises, and the state has agreed to privatise these facilities in exchange for upgrading their equipment, which was previously causing significant problems. Now, according to the Brazilian Chamber of Energy Commerce, Brazil currently generates 68% of its electricity from hydropower. And this dominance of the energy sector of the country's economy is a key factor in the strategic investment decisions of the major global players. And that's evidenced by China's investment portfolio, with 76% of its total investment in Brazil directed towards the energy sector. The strategic alliance was underpinned by the One Belt, One Road and Entering the World Market initiatives, which is a testament to the mutually beneficial nature of these partnerships. As analysts observe, Brazil is the country in which China has invested the most worldwide, and virtually all spheres of life in Brazil depend on energy consumption. That includes transport, trade and housing. Now, as reported by Folha de Sao Paulo, citing data from the Brazil-China Business Council, Brazil has become the major destination for Chinese capital, and it accounts for 13% of China's foreign investment operations worldwide. So it's noteworthy that during the election campaign, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva expressed concern about the growing Chinese presence in his country, and he continues to voice similar concerns. Indeed, judging by the investment activity in areas of capital investment, China is actually turning Brazil into a dependent territory with giant resources. But that does it by using the fact that modernisation projects are extremely important for Brazil. That includes the solving of social problems, and they cannot be resolved without external financial injections. Now over to Trump. As a business tycoon, he is used to solving matters by forcing deals, using problematic situations of the participant in these negotiations. Obviously this naturally irritates many. China, on the other hand, is entering Brazil doing it in generally good deeds. However, as Lula correctly stated, this is actually occupying it. If an occupier enters a country with a machine gun or using other elements of pressure on the independent states of the country, then there's the other hand, an investor enters as a potential owner. And before you know it, he already owns the lion's share of property in strategically important areas. But how can you deprive them of these objects if they illegally came by them? There's no way without an international scandal. So I think there's a conflict between China and the local political and business elite is inevitable, especially considering the ambitions of the Brazilians for their superpower status and the rebellious, freedom-loving spirit characterised by all Latin Americans. When will this happen and exactly what will it result in? I'm not going to judge. But I can predict it's certainly going to happen, despite them being close partners within the BRICS. So, anyway, I hope this video has been interesting and thought-provoking. Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe. And if you want to help me out, please click on the thanks button at the bottom of the video screen. And I'll see you all again soon. Thank you.